The basement was dark and heavy with dust. Every strike of his hammer echoed like a drum in a tomb. He had been working for hours breaking down the old concrete, when suddenly the sound changed. Instead of solid stone, there was a hollow metallic thud that froze him in place. His breath caught as he pressed his ear to the wall and heard a faint vibration deep inside. The air grew colder, as if something hidden was stirring. His hands trembled, yet he kept digging. Piece by piece, the bricks crumbled away until a strange glow seeped through the cracks. Not the light of a bulb or lamp, but a soft blue pulse like a heartbeat. His chest tightened as he pulled the last slab aside and stumbled back. There in the shadows was not just rubble, but a massive pod buried in the earth, covered in strange symbols that shifted like they were alive. It gave off a low hum that rattled his bones, and as he wiped the dust from its surface, he saw movement. Inside, a shadow drifting slowly as if someone was sleeping within. His heart pounded louder than his hammer ever had, and in that moment he knew this was no ordinary basement. He had just unearthed something that should not exist, something waiting to awaken. The basement was colder than the rest of the house. Dust clung to every corner, and cobwebs stretched like forgotten warnings. He had decided to finally renovate it, swinging his hammer against the old concrete wall. Each strike echoed louder than the last. For hours he worked without much thought, until one swing produced a sound that was different. Not the dull crack of stone, but a hollow metallic thud that froze his blood. He paused with his hammer still in hand, listening to the silence that followed. Then came a faint vibration through the wall, subtle at first like a distant hum. He pressed his ear close and felt a shiver crawl down his spine. Something inside was alive. He tried to shake it off, telling himself it was just pipes or wiring. But curiosity pulled at him stronger than fear. He struck again and again, breaking through layers of stone until fragments of brick rained down in a cloud of dust. Behind the wall, a faint light seeped out. Not yellow like a bulb or lantern, but blue and soft like moonlight pulsing with rhythm. His heartbeat quickened as he tore away more of the wall, and then it appeared before him, a massive pod buried deep in the basement. Its surface curved and smooth, etched with symbols that seemed to shift when he stared too long. He touched it with shaking fingers and felt a warmth under the surface, as if the thing itself was breathing. A low hum filled the basement, vibrating through his bones. He stumbled back and almost dropped his hammer. What was this thing? Who had put it here? Why was it glowing? His mind swirled with questions yet his body refused to flee. The glow grew brighter, casting long shadows against the basement floor. He leaned closer, peering through the mist that formed on the glass-like surface of the pod. And then his breath caught. Inside the pod something moved. Slow and deliberate, like a dreamer turning in sleep. He wiped the dust with his sleeve, pressing his face closer, and what he saw made his chest seize. A figure lay within, not a skeleton or machine, but a woman, her skin faintly glowing as if lit from beneath. Her hair floated around her face like she was submerged in water, though there was no liquid inside. Her chest rose and fell in the rhythm of life. She was not dead. She was sleeping. He staggered back, his hammer clattering to the floor. His mind raced between fear and awe. How could a woman be sealed in a pod beneath his house? Was she human? Or something else? The hum grew louder and louder until tools on his workbench rattled. Lights flickered above his head as if the whole house was reacting to the pod. He wanted to run upstairs into the safety of daylight, yet his legs would not move. His eyes were locked on her face, serene and untouched by time. She looked both fragile and powerful, like a goddess in slumber. The symbols on the pod began to glow brighter, shifting in patterns he could not read. The air grew thick with static, raising the hairs on his arms. He reached out, one trembling hand almost touching the glass, and at that moment, her eyes flickered beneath her closed lids. His breath left him in a gasp. She was waking. Panic surged through him, yet his body stayed rooted. He had been renovating his basement only hours ago, and now he was standing before a secret that could change everything he thought he knew about the world. The pod pulsed one final time like a heartbeat, and the basement sank into silence, waiting for her to open her eyes. The dust still hung in the air of the basement like a heavy curtain. His lungs burned from every breath, but his eyes never left the strange object half buried in the rubble. The pod glowed faintly with an otherworldly blue light that throbbed, as if it had a pulse of its own. He stepped closer, his boots crunching on broken stone and fallen mortar. His trembling fingers reached out again, brushing the smooth, curved surface. The warmth that spread into his hand made him recoil in shock. It was not just a machine, it was alive. He circled around it, carefully noting the strange symbols carved into its sides. They twisted and shifted whenever he blinked, like they were rearranging themselves to a rhythm beyond human comprehension. He whispered to himself, trying to make sense of it. Maybe it was some government experiment hidden decades ago. Maybe it was a relic from a forgotten civilization. But deep down he knew none of those answers fit the truth he was staring at. His basement had been ordinary for years, yet this pod had been buried beneath it, waiting for him. His hammer lay on the ground, abandoned, yet he felt the urge to smash the pod open. But fear held him back. He could feel the vibration beneath his shoes as the hum inside deepened. The glass-like dome at the center shifted from opaque to translucent. Mist rolled inside like clouds, swirling across a night sky. His breath fogged the surface as he leaned closer, and then he froze. The figure inside became clear. A silhouette at first, then features sharper than any dream. He saw her face, delicate and unreal, her skin glowing faintly with silver veins like rivers of light. Her hair spread out in waves, moving as though water surrounded her, though the pod was filled with nothing but shimmering air. His chest tightened as he realized she was not dead. She was sleeping. His throat went dry as he backed away, stumbling over bricks, yet his gaze never left her. The pod responded to his panic, glowing brighter with every step he took. His heart pounded in rhythm with its hum until he swore it was beating in time with her own. The symbols flared suddenly, throwing sharp shadows across the room. The air grew colder, and a static charge stung his skin. His tools rattled across the floor, rolling toward the pod as if drawn by invisible force. He tried to convince himself it was all a hallucination from exhaustion, but the pressure in the room was too real. Every hair on his arm stood tall. His instincts screamed at him to run, but something deeper inside whispered, stay. The pod was ancient yet advanced, alien yet familiar. He pressed his palm against the surface again despite his fear. The warmth spread through his body, calming his breath for just a moment. His heart still raced, but a strange connection sparked between them. He could not explain it, but he knew she was aware of him. Her chest rose slightly deeper, her head tilted as if adjusting in her slumber. The symbols shifted faster, glowing like firebrands against the metal. A sharp crack echoed through the basement as one corner of the glass dome split. He jumped back, wide-eyed as mist hissed out, filling the air with a scent like ozone and rain. The hum rose into a low chant that shook the foundation of the house above. Dust poured down from the ceiling while his tools clanged together across the floor. He shielded his face with his arms, but kept his eyes on the pod. The split widened, spreading across the surface in jagged lines. The glow turned blinding, forcing him to squint. His mind screamed this was impossible, yet his body braced for what came next. Something hidden for centuries, maybe longer, was about to awaken under his own roof, and he was the only witness. The crack spread across the glass surface like lightning frozen in place. His breath caught as more mist seeped into the basement, curling around his legs like cold smoke. Through the widening gap, the figure inside became clearer with every second. And what he saw made his heart pound with fear and wonder all at once. It was a woman, yet not like any woman he had ever seen. Her skin shimmered faintly as though made of starlight, soft blue veins glowing beneath the surface in patterns that pulsed like rivers of light. Her hair floated around her face like strands of silver fire moving as though underwater, though the chamber was dry. Her lips were pale and still, her chest rising and falling with a slow rhythm that proved she was alive. He staggered back, pressing himself against the basement wall, his hands shaking violently. His mind screamed that this was impossible. No human could be preserved like this. No human could look this unearthly, but his eyes refused to look away. He remembered every story of strange sightings whispered on late-night radio shows, every myth about ancient beings hidden beneath the earth, and now one of them was lying only feet away from him. He bent down to pick up his hammer, his instincts urging him to arm himself, yet the closer he held it, the heavier it felt, like some invisible weight pressed on his chest warning him not to harm her. He dropped it again, the clang echoing in the basement. His breath was ragged as he inched forward. The pod's hum grew softer, calmer, almost like it was responding to his choice. He pressed his trembling palm to the glass. Warmth spread through his skin, up his arm, and into his chest. His fears slowly drowned in a tide of strange calmness. Her eyelids fluttered gently as if she was dreaming and aware of his presence. His pulse quickened, but he could not pull back. Her features were perfect yet alien, cheekbones sharper than human symmetry, eyes closed but glowing faintly beneath, thin lids as though stars themselves were trapped within. A beauty so breathtaking it felt dangerous. He whispered without thinking, asking who she was. His words vanished in the thick mist, but the pod seemed to respond. A low vibration trembled beneath his palm. The symbols carved across the surface glowed brighter, shifting in new sequences he could not comprehend. He stumbled backward and nearly tripped over the rubble. The pod was changing, the glass shifting from translucent to almost invisible. The woman inside now clearer than ever, as though there was nothing separating them. His legs shook as he forced himself to stay, his breath shallow as he wondered if she could hear his thoughts. Questions raced in his mind. Was she human or something? Beyond, was she prisoner or queen? Why was she buried here beneath his house? Before he could piece a single answer, the hum deepened, and the air vibrated with a strange melody. The lights in the basement flickered violently, then steadied. The entire house above him groaned like it was alive. He fell to his knees, covering his ears, but the sound was inside his bones, pressing deep into his skull like a voice without words. When it faded, he dared to open his eyes. Her lips had parted slightly as if whispering in sleep. A sound so soft escaped the pod that it might have been his imagination. A syllable in a language not of this world. His heart thundered as he realized this was no accident. She was aware of him, aware that he had found her. His hands curled into fists against the cold concrete floor. He wanted to run, but something anchored him in place. He could not leave her. He knew with unshakable certainty that his life had already changed. The pod had chosen this moment, and it had chosen him, and now the alien beauty inside was beginning to wake. The air inside the basement grew so heavy it felt like his lungs were being squeezed. The glow from the pod pulsed faster and brighter, like a living heartbeat. The cracks in the glass spread with a sharp hiss as streams of mist poured out, flooding the room until he could barely see his own hands. His body shook as the low hum rose into a roar, vibrating through the floorboards of the house above. Tools rattled and cans rolled off shelves, clattering across the ground. He wanted to run, but his legs refused to obey. His eyes locked on the figure inside as her eyelids fluttered once more. The sound of the glass shifting filled the air like ice splitting on a frozen lake. His chest tightened as the pod suddenly emitted a deep chime that rang through his bones. The symbols along its surface flared with burning light, changing too quickly for his eyes to follow, and then with a deafening crack the glass split wide. A surge of mist burst out, chilling his skin as the chamber opened. He stumbled backward, shielding his face as the pressure inside the room dropped. And through the smoke he saw her stir. Her hand moved first, slow and graceful fingers tipped with faint blue light, brushing against the inside of the pod. His breath came in sharp gasps as the glow from her veins brightened with each movement. Her chest rose deeper now, stronger. The hum synchronized with her breaths as though the entire machine was tied to her life force. The mist curled around her body like a shroud before sliding away to reveal her form. She was more stunning and terrifying than anything he could imagine. Her skin shimmered with light that rippled like water under the moon. Her hair spilled forward, flowing as if the air itself bent to her. She pushed the pod fully open with a strength that sent a tremor across the basement floor. He gripped the wall, his knees weak as her eyes slowly opened, twin orbs glowing faintly with silver. Fire locking on him with impossible clarity. His heart hammered as those eyes pierced through him. He could not breathe, could not think, his entire body frozen under her gaze. She stepped forward, her bare feet touching the floor, as if the ground itself shifted beneath her. Every motion precise and fluid, like a predator studying its prey. Yet her expression was calm, unreadable, almost childlike in its innocence. She tilted her head, watching him, a faint sound slipping from her lips. It was not English, not any language he knew. Yet it sank into his mind like a whisper he could almost understand. His ears rang with a strange tone, and his vision swayed. He tried to speak, but only broken words came out. The basement light flickered violently, then steadied, bathing them both in eerie glow. She raised her hand, reaching toward him, her fingers trembling as though she was both weak and desperate. He wanted to back away, yet found himself leaning closer. Drawn by a force stronger than fear, her hand brushed his arm and heat surged through him. Every nerve alive, as though electricity shot beneath his skin. His body stiffened, but he could not pull back. Her eyes widened at the contact, as if she too was shocked by what she felt. The pod behind her cracked further, collapsing inward as sparks shot across its symbols. The hum faded into silence, replaced by the sound of his own heartbeat pounding. In his ears, dust fell from the ceiling as the house groaned again. He staggered back, breathing hard while she stood swaying on her feet. She looked fragile, yet every instinct told him she was something powerful beyond his imagination. Before he could speak, the silence broke with a sound from above. A heavy thud against the floorboards, like something massive had landed outside. His stomach dropped as her eyes darted upward, filled with fear. She whispered again, more urgently this time. And though he could not understand her words, he knew one thing with absolute certainty. Waking her had awakened something else too. And it was already coming for them. The silence that followed the thud above was heavier than any sound he had ever heard. His breath came in shallow gasps as he pressed himself against the wall, his eyes darting between the cracked ceiling and the alien woman standing only feet away. Her silver-lit eyes never left him, yet in them he saw something more than power. He saw fear. Her lips moved, shaping words in a language that twisted in his ears, sharp and melodic like a song from the stars. He shook his head, whispering that he could not understand her. His voice shaking, she stepped closer, her movements graceful yet unsteady, as if every step drained her strength. When her hand brushed his arm again, the heat returned, flooding through his body. His knees buckled, but he did not collapse. He could feel her trying to reach him, not with words, but with something deeper. Her touch carried emotions that were not his own, flashes of loneliness, desperation, and a hunger for freedom. His chest ached as though her memories had found a way into his veins. His throat tightened as he whispered, asking who she was. She tilted her head and placed her hand over her chest, glowing veins pulsing brighter under her skin. Her other hand touched his heart, as if to say they were connected. His mind swirled between terror and awe. Before he could speak again, another sound came from above. Footsteps, heavy, deliberate, circling the house. Dust rained down as the boards creaked. His stomach twisted as realization struck. She was not the only one that had been awakened. Whoever or whatever put her in that pod had found her. She gripped his wrist, suddenly her fingers tightening with a strength that shocked him. Her glowing eyes widened, urging him to listen. And though her words remained alien, the meaning bled into him like a current. Danger was here. Protect me. The basement lights flickered again, casting their shadows long across the walls. He could hear something metallic scraping outside, like claws dragging against steel. His heart pounded louder than the noise. The alien woman swayed, her legs trembling, but she did not let go of him. He realized she was weak, vulnerable, though her presence felt like raw power. If those things above wanted her, she would not be able to fight them alone. The weight of choice fell on his shoulders, crushing him. His mind screamed that he was just a man, just a simple worker who had been fixing his basement. But his soul knew he had already crossed a line. He could not pretend this had not happened. He could not abandon her. She took another shaky step. Pressing closer, the glow in her eyes dimmed for a moment, as if she was fading. He caught her instinctively, holding her steady. The warmth of her skin burned into his palms, yet it felt right. Her gaze locked on his, and for the first time she whispered a word that echoed perfectly in his mind. Help. The plea tore through him, silencing every doubt. Upstairs, the sound of glass shattering rang out. Heavy boots or claws stomped through. His living room, every second dragged him closer to a choice that would seal his fate. His body trembled with fear, but inside his chest something harder grew. He had no idea what those things were, or what they wanted. But he knew with chilling certainty that if they took her, he would never forgive himself. The alien beauty clung to his arm, her body weak but her will strong. Her glow pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, as if she had already chosen him. The basement door groaned as shadows moved against it. He clenched his fists, standing taller than he ever had, no longer just a man renovating a basement, but a man standing at the threshold of a war he did not understand. The handle shook, dust sprinkling from the frame. The alien whispered once more, her voice trembling but clear. They are here. And in that instant he knew that the first contact was not with her, but with the nightmare that had come to claim her. The basement door rattled violently, shaking dust loose from the beams above. His pulse thundered as heavy shadows flickered under the crack of the door. He held the alien woman closer, feeling the tremor in her body, though her glowing eyes never left the stairwell. She whispered something sharp and urgent in her strange tongue, and though he could not understand the words, the terror in her voice carried enough meaning. They had found her. Another crash echoed through the house as furniture toppled upstairs. The sound of claws dragging across the wooden floorboards carved into his nerves. He clenched his jaw, scanning the room for anything he could use. His hammer lay forgotten near the rubble, but even in his panic he knew it would be useless against whatever was above. The alien beauty clung to his arm, swaying on her feet, her glow flickering weaker, as if her strength was being drained by their presence. He whispered to her, asking what they wanted, but she only shook her head and pressed her palm against his chest, her veins pulsing brighter for a moment. His heart skipped as an image flashed through his mind, towering creatures with jagged armor and burning eyes dragging her pot into the earth. Her voice crying out in silence, and then darkness. The vision snapped away, leaving him gasping, but now he knew. She had been imprisoned, and they had returned to reclaim her. The basement door finally cracked, splinters flying across the floor. As a clawed hand punched through, grabbing at the air, he dragged her back deeper into the shadows, pressing them both against the far wall. The handle twisted with a scream of metal before shattering off its hinges. The door burst open, and the figure stepped into view. His stomach turned as his eyes adjusted to their forms. Tall and skeletal, wrapped in dark plates that shimmered like oil. Their heads elongated with glowing red slits for eyes. Their movements were wrong, jerking like broken puppets, yet fast as predators. 3 of them descended the stairs, each step making the old wood groan. The alien woman stiffened, pressing closer to him, her hand tightening on his arm. Her glow sparked faintly as if fighting to return. One of the creatures sniffed the air, a guttural sound ripping from its throat as its gaze snapped toward them. His body screamed to run, but there was nowhere to go. The creatures hissed words in a guttural tongue that felt like acid in his ears. They were not speaking to him, they were speaking to her. She answered in her melodic language, her voice trembling, yet sharp. The lead creature roared, shaking the walls, and pointed its claw at her. They began to advance. He grabbed the hammer from the floor, lifting it with shaking hands. The weight felt like nothing against the storm inside him. His mind told him he was insane to stand against monsters born from nightmares. But his heart burned with the memory of her whispered plea. Help! The lead creature lunged forward, its claws slicing the air. He swung blindly, screaming as the hammer connected with a clang of sparks against its armor. The beast staggered but did not fall. It snarled, snapping its head back toward him. The other 2 hissed louder, surrounding them. The alien woman raised her trembling hand, pressing it to the wall. Symbols flared across the basement stone, glowing in response to her touch. Energy rippled through the air, sending one creature stumbling back in surprise. Her glow intensified for a moment, but she nearly collapsed. He caught her before she fell, holding her tightly. The creatures hissed in anger, their claws raking across the ground. His heart pounded as he realized this was only the beginning. The hunters had found their prize, and he was the only thing standing between her and them. The basement shook under the weight of the hunters' steps as they closed in their jagged claws, dragging lines across the floor, and their red eyes glowing like embers in the dark. His grip on the hammer tightened, though his arms trembled with the weight of fear. The alien woman leaned against him, her glow flickering weaker each second, yet her gaze burned with urgency. She pressed her hand to his chest again, her voice breaking as she whispered words he could not understand, but their meaning crashed through his mind with brutal clarity. Do not give me to them. Protect me. His throat was dry, his heart slamming against his ribs, as the lead hunter stepped forward, lowering its massive head to hiss in his direction. The sound tore through the air like metal grinding against stone. He wanted to collapse to the ground, but instead he forced his legs to hold. Her fingers dug into his arm, drawing strength from him and giving him strength in return. The hunters spread out, circling like predators that had cornered prey. One lunged fast, its claws slicing at the wall near his head. He ducked, pulling her with him and swinging the hammer with everything he had. Sparks exploded as metal struck alien armor again, the creature snarling in rage. The others hissed louder, pressing closer. His body screamed that this was hopeless. He was just a man with a hammer facing monsters that did not belong to this world, but his soul refused to bend. The woman's eyes locked on his, glowing brighter for a heartbeat as she pressed both palms against his chest. A rush of fire surged into his veins, filling him with heat that nearly knocked him to the floor. His arms steadied, his breath calmed. Even as the hunters closed in, he felt her strength mixing with his own, as though some bond had been formed between them. The lead hunter roared, raising its claws for the final strike. And in that instant, he realized he had a choice. He could let go, step aside, and let them take her, sparing himself from a fight he could never win. Or he could stand his ground with nothing but his will and a woman not of this world who had chosen him. The thought seared into him as the hunter's claws arced downward. He moved not with fear, but with fury, swinging the hammer upward with a roar that echoed louder than the creatures themselves. The blow cracked against the lead hunter's jaw, staggering it back in shock. The other two rushed forward, but the alien woman lifted her hands, glowing veins flaring like rivers of fire. A wave of force erupted from her palms, slamming into the hunters, sending them crashing into the basement walls. The stones groaned and cracked under the impact. She collapsed against him, gasping, her strength nearly spent, but her eyes shone with fierce defiance. The hunters screeched, dragging themselves up again, their rage burning hotter. The choice still hung heavy in the air as the basement rumbled with every step they took. His heart pounded with the truth. If he stood aside, she would be lost, and he would live the rest of his life haunted by the memory of the woman who asked for his help. If he chose to fight, he might die in the next breath, but at least he would die with honor and a purpose greater than himself. He looked at her fragile yet unyielding form, and in that moment, his decision crystallized. He pulled her close, whispering that he would not abandon her. The hunters roared one final time, lunging together, their claws tearing through the mist. The house shook under their charge. The glow from her body pulsed in unison with his heartbeat. Their fates now bound as the battle erupted in the basement. And whatever choice he made in that instant would not only decide their survival, but perhaps the future of all humanity. If you love thrilling HFY sci-fi stories like this, turn on the bell icon so you never miss the next twist in our sci-fi universe. Make sure to hit that subscribe button.